Okay, so we're at the Kanesville Visitor Center, and I'm gonna let one of the missionaries who runs the center here do the commentary.
So this painting represents the Grand Encampment. When the Saints were crossing Iowa in 1846, the first group took almost 4 months to cross. And by the time they reached the Missouri River, the spring group of Saints had caught up with them. There was a 9 by 4 mile long area covered with wagons while they were trying to figure out what they were going to do.
Okay. Go ahead.
This is Colonel Thomas Kane, along with Alexander Donovan. He's probably the greatest non-LDS friend of the church in the early days that really helped us, particularly with the calling of the Mormon Battalion and later on with some of the conflicts that the Saints had with the federal government. The Saints were in the mid-Missouri Valley for a period of 6 years, and they had dozens of settlements across an area more than 50 miles square, or 50 miles from one end to the other, because they had over 10,000 head of large livestock. One of the reasons Kanesville is important is because this is where the Mormon Battalion was mustered. This statue here, Call to Duty, represents the great sacrifices of the Mormon Battalion families as they separated from another at the call of the prophet.
Okay.
Here we have some artifacts from the Mormon Battalion period. The uniform on the left, all that was standard amongst the men was the white belt that you see there. You can see the small canteen that helped them survive the many miles of desert that they crossed en route to Southern California. The march of over 2,000 miles is represented there in that small map. This is the list of the various companies of the Mormon Battalion. The companies of about 100 each, totaling 500. None of them died in battle. 22 of them did die from other natural and accidental causes during the 2,000 plus mile journey. When the Saints were encouraged to leave the Council Bluffs area in 1853, they were able to sell some of their properties for a better price than they realized earlier in Nauvoo. Brigham Young had encouraged them to come west finally. And shortly thereafter, about 6 years later, Abraham Lincoln came to this area and declared that he felt that it was the natural terminus for the first leg of the Transcontinental Railroad, and that's exactly what happened. This became a railroad town. So this is a photo of the replica log tabernacle that was built here, that was taken down 2 years ago. In that tabernacle, the first presidency was reorganized for the first time since the passing of the prophet Joseph. And the general membership of the church came and sustained them that day. That was in December of 1847.
So that's when Brigham Young became the president of the church then, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. This is another marvelous thing that happened here in Kanesville. On the left there, we see the portrait of Oliver Cowdery, and on the right, of Joseph Smith. Oliver Cowdery was rebaptized here after about a 9-year ministering effort by Phineas Young, Brigham Young's older brother. He returned here because he recognized that the apostolic keys were with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as opposed to other Mormon break-off sects that were courting his favor.
Okay, so what we found out when we came here is that this site is known for three main things. One of them is the gathering of the saints who came from Nauvoo to prepare to go west. The second thing is the calling of the Mormon Battalion and how that financed and prepared the way for the members to be able to move west. And the third thing is the reorganization or the further organization of the presidency of the church and naming of Brigham Young as the prophet of the church. And then the last important event here was the return of Oliver Cowdery. And what I read outside in plaques there is that Oliver Cowdery basically just showed up while they were having a meeting one day. And who was speaking?
Orson Hyde.
Orson Hyde was speaking and stopped speaking and recognized him and asked him to come to the stand, and Oliver Cowdery bore his testimony at that time and wanted to come back to the church. So this is outside the Visitor Center in Kanesville. It's brand new. It hasn't even been dedicated yet. And the man that just spoke talked about how those different elements that happened here all had to do with priesthood keys. The church historian, who's going to come and dedicate this site in the fall, explained that there was three common elements to the events that happened here. One of them was the priest, and it all had to do with priesthood keys. So the priesthood keys were followed Brigham Young, and as he was placed as the leader of the church. Second, Oliver Cowdery, who was present at all three events where priesthood keys were transferred from angels or from people who had the keys. He was the only other person other than Joseph Smith who received or who was there when priesthood keys were received from Peter, James, and John, and Elijah, and all those events. And he rejoined the church here, even though other breakoffs of the church were courting him to go and be with them. He came back here because he knew that the keys were with the 12. And then the Mormon Battalion, when they were asked to join, they didn't want to, because they had just been mistreated and not protected by the United States government. But when Brigham Young told them that it was the will of the Lord that they do that, they recognized that he had the priesthood authority and the keys, and they did. And it was a significant event in the improving the conditions for the saints moving west. We watched a video here, and it gave us the history of the Mormon Battalion that I've never heard about. And I will take a quick shot of it so you can get the name of it. So this is the film that we watched here in the Visitor Center. I very highly recommend you watch it. Most of what was on that film I knew nothing about. And that concludes our visit here. Thank you.